other heavy metals coming with that oil. So you're not supposed to have a lot of DHA if it comes from fish. And that is why so many women are simply confused. They don't know what to do, how to get enough DHA. And it's possible to get DHA also in supplements from algae. Various types of macroalgae and microalgae contain DHA, and so you can get it from foods like macroalgae, like kelp and dulse and aziki and so on. They all have some DHA, but you especially can get it in supplements from microalgae, and it's known as algal DHA. If there's a need for that. In my opinion, if everybody ate in a healthy way, we wouldn't need that. But in reality, I cannot vouch for the health of everybody I talk to, so I have to mention the importance of DHA in brain development, and at least during pregnancy and early childhood development, during breastfeeding, I would recommend to take algae sources of DHA supplement just to be on the safe side. It's not a large quantity, but at the same time to reduce the intake of highly rancid or potentially rancidified fatty acids from the other sources. What is the best fat that we can eat and should be eating? That is the coconut oil. Coconut oil has a lot of virtues. It does not have long-chain fatty acids like polyunsaturated fatty acids do and like saturated animal fats do. Coconut oil has short-chain and medium-chain triglycerides. They're short enough that they change their behavior in the human body. They have antimicrobial properties. Many of them are used as antifungal and antiviral, many of the fatty acids found within coconut oil. Coconut oil is naturally, because it's a tropical oil, it's naturally accustomed to hot weather, and warm climate is where humans have also developed. So we are all warm-blooded, and the fruits growing in the tropics are warm-blooded, so to speak, because they are accustomed to being in the hot climates of the tropics. They have oils that are stable that can handle that. But because the tropics contain a lot of insects and worms and parasites that can infest the fruits developed new antimicrobial properties that allowed it to survive an entire season, an entire year of parasites. The tropics are much more infested because they don't have the deep freeze of the winter to start the whole cycle from scratch every time. That's why those tropical fruits must develop all those compounds, so they have those short-chain and medium-chain triglycerides, which are antimicrobial, antifungal, and antiviral. That is also why they are very good for us to eat them, because they help protect us from parasites and other microbes. And if we lived in the tropics, that's what we would do all the time. Coconuts would be available all year long. Palm oil also would be available. Palm kernel oil would be available. But coconut oil is the best in its composition of its fatty acids. And because it is saturated, it is very stable. Unfortunately, too many companies and too many doctors and nutritionists, even the American Institute for Cancer Research, in winter of 2003, advised people against coconut oil and palm oil because, even though they are tropical oil, because they're saturated, they simply ask you to limit them in your diet, which indicates that they're ignorant about things. They simply want to eliminate saturated fats instead of making sure that the right kind of saturated fats, coconut oil, remains in your diet. So they treat everybody in a way, they speak down to people, telling them all that they should not have any saturated fat instead of explaining the differences between types of saturated fats. They are telling you to shift mostly to a plant-based diet because the oil will reduce cancer and high blood pressure and heart disease and stroke and type 2 diabetes. But why should they tell people to lower their oil content when a study in the island of Crete in the 1960s, a 15-year study, revealed that men who had 40% of their calories from fat had a much healthier body and much reduced cancer mortality and 1/20th the death rate for heart disease than people even in Greece, Italy, and the United States, even though the average fat intake was higher. And they found out that those people were consuming a lot of olive oil. So obviously olive oil is fine to have in higher amounts. And I wouldn't be too concerned about people having extra virgin olive oil, and therefore it's not just about the quantity of fats, it's a type of fat, and some are good for you. But back to coconut oil, because coconut oils undo the negative impact of unstable polyunsaturated fatty acids, coconut oil reduces the free radical damage and reduce the negative impact on the thyroid gland by polyunsaturated fatty acid that we are bound to have in our diet whether we like it or not. So people who eat coconut oil regularly are going to have improved metabolism, higher functioning of their thyroid gland, and therefore their fat burning ability is increased, and they have 25% increased metabolism. And that's why when you go to some countries where they're still eating coconuts and coconut oil all the time, nobody is fat. Everybody is skinny and healthy. We just need to incorporate more of that into our diet. Studies that introduce people to 3 types of oil: one that is only unsaturated, one that is partially unsaturated and partially coconut oil, and one that is entirely coconut oil, have shown time and time again that the more coconut oil you have, the more lean you are. The more polyunsaturated fats you have, the fatter you get. That's a very important correlation. They did studies with animals to that effect, showing that coconut oil was healthier in many ways, preventing free radical damage, helping with the hormone balance, and reducing rancidity of the tissues and improving the immune system, besides reducing the different problems from microbes. One other aspect that is important about coconut oil is that the short-chain triglycerides are extremely easy to digest and to become energy. They don't have to go through the very, very lengthy process of polyunsaturated fatty acids and even saturated fatty acids that come into the body when we digest fats in the form of triglycerides. Those triglycerides contain something that has 3 carbons called glycerol, connected to 3 fatty acids, and that's why it's called triglycerides. That's how we ingest most fat. The digestive tract has to break it down into its constituents. Then they need to be absorbed. Then they need to be repackaged and reassembled into triglycerides. Then they have to come to be joined with proteins and other factors to form something called chylomicrons, which are emulsified particles that can then go in the water of the lymphatic channels for a long, long time before they get into the circulation. Then they distribute throughout the body before they can get to the liver for processing. That's what happened with triglycerides, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. Short-chain triglycerides and medium-chain triglycerides from coconut oil don't have to do all that. They can be directly absorbed and